Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, please subscribe. If you're old here and you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe. Moral of the story, please subscribe. Okay, so today's video is going to be all about office hours, tips and tricks, all that kind of stuff. I do realize that office hours might look different for this upcoming academic school year because of COVID. So I'm kind of assuming here that your office hours might be over Zoom or something like that, but maybe they'll be in person. Either way, you can apply these things that I'm saying to whatever your situation is. Let's get right into the video. Okay, so the first thing to know about office hours, I feel like I should just say this straight out, is that they can be kind of awkward. So in my experience with office hours, the awkwardness level really varies professor to professor, according to their personality, how personable they are, how awkward they are as a person, like the vibe between you guys. And I feel like you should just know that going into it, it might be an awkward experience or it might be totally not awkward at all and the conversation will flow and it won't be weird. But just know that if you feel like it's a little bit awkward or whatever, you're not doing anything wrong. That just kind of comes with the situation inherently. And so I'm going to split up these tips and tricks and advice for office hours to two kind of different categories. One is for seminars and one is for big lectures because office hours can kind of look different according to the type of class. So office hours for big lectures are especially helpful because in a large lecture, the professor, let's be real, is not going to really know you or know your name associated with your face unless you make an effort for them to get to know you. And so that's why office hours, I think, are especially helpful for larger lectures in a way that they're not as helpful for seminars. And it can be really good for you to get the professor to know you as a person because I think that will translate advantageously into your grade for the class. And so in a large lecture, I do recommend that you go to office hours. This can be kind of tricky because if you don't actually have a question or you aren't actually struggling with something in the class, you can be like, well, then how do I get this professor to know me? You can utilize office hours to just kind of be a conversation. So you don't necessarily need to go into office hours with a question, which sounds kind of silly, but let me think of an example. So say you're in like a large chem lecture. You don't need to go into office hours with one question like, what happens when I put these two acids together? Because that's going to be a very short thing. And that kind of question is probably already answered in your lecture, if that makes sense. So you can go into office hours for a large lecture. Or I didn't quite understand this aspect of last class when you said blah, blah, blah. It can be a little bit broader and just more of a conversation. And if you are genuinely interested or passionate about something that the professor touched on in the lecture, mention that because I think it's good to show that you're engaged and you're actually listening. It's kind of a sly way of going, hey, I'm not sleeping in lecture, give me a good grade, like I'm actually paying attention without actually having to say that. So I think that's how you can use office hours for lectures, is just as a way to show you're engaged, to show you're interested, and as a way for the professor to recognize your name. So when they're grading your paper or your test, they can go, oh yeah, this was Susie Q, who came to my office hours and seemed really interested and had questions for me or just wanted to talk. I remember her, she seemed very engaged, and I think that will kind of slyly make them give you a better grade, even if they're not realizing it. I think it just always helps for the professor to know you on a more personal level. Okay, so now for office hours with seminars. So seminars are a lot different because inherently the professor is already going to know your name to your face just because seminars are so small. All the seminars I had, even the seating is a lot more intimate because in a large lecture, you're in a lecture hall, so it's just rows of seats and then the professor is kind of at the bottom. But with the seminar, sitting at a table, like a round or an oval table, so you can actually see everybody's face because you're all sitting in a different configuration. And in that way, the professor with a seminar is already, hopefully, going to know your name and your face. But that doesn't mean office hours can't still be helpful for a seminar. You would use office hours with a seminar for a more targeted question. And also I found with seminars, it's helpful if you get a grade back on an essay. That's a really great use of office hours, is to go in with that essay and say, oh, I see you commented here. Can we talk about this? Or I'm just wondering why you took off a point here. Or even, I think you can just question why you got a certain grade. You shouldn't be rude about it. Like if you get a B, you shouldn't be like, I totally should have gotten an A. You can say, I'm just wondering what would have made this paper an A, or what can I do next time to get an A? And I think that's really helpful, because then the next paper you write, the professor of that seminar is thinking, oh, this person really was going for an A here, and then maybe they're more likely to give you an A. And so I think with seminars, it is a good use of your time still to talk to the professor, even though they'll already probably know you. After talking about office hours with seminars versus lectures, I'll now just talk more generally about what are office hours even for and how logistically do they work. So each of your professors, I'm pretty sure, are mandated at Barnard and Columbia to have at least an hour a week of office hours. And typically on the syllabus, they will list their office hours location and dates and times. If their office hour doesn't work for your schedule, you can always email them or talk to them after class and say, hey, I have class during this time or whatever it is. Can you actually meet at some time else? And almost always they can, unless they're like the busiest professor ever. And so what exactly are office hours for? So you can kind of approach them in two different ways, which I've kind of already talked about. You can come with a targeted question, like a very literal question. You can come asking about the reading if you didn't understand something in the reading. You can question a grade that you got, say, hey, how can I improve, or why did I get this grade? You can also ask how best to approach the class. So if you're struggling with workload or with timing or with even class participation, for example, in a seminar, you can say, hey, I'm a more shy person, or I don't feel as comfortable speaking up. I just want you to know that I'm very engaged in the class. So even if I don't participate as much as you might like me to, just know that I'm, an active member of the class, because with seminars, it is usually expected that you will be an active participant. So if that's something you struggle with, I think you can really use office hours to bring that to light to your professor. Let them know that, so they understand that you're not just blowing off the participation aspect. Also, I've had professors offer alternatives to participation in classes, where if you don't want to raise your hand and talk, you can email them your comments, and in that way you'll still get credit for participation. And so office hours are a great way to talk about something that's personal to you that you wouldn't want to bring up in a classroom setting. And another thing office hours are great for is if you're going through something personally with mental health, physical health, if someone in your family is not doing well. Basically, if there's something that is going to impact how you act in the class, the grades you get, your level of engagement, let them know. I think there's no harm in letting your professor know what's really going on so they can better understand your circumstances. I think that's a great use of office hours, and I think that will really help them understand your situation a lot better. And then one thing I will touch on just at the end of this video here is TAs. So a lot of the times in my classes, the professor and the TA would split grading, and so each of them would grade half of the class. And I was really lucky enough to often get the TA as my grader, because I do think in general TAs grade easier. Maybe that is a controversial thing to say, maybe it's not true, but I just feel like TAs probably grade easier. I don't know. Comment below if you agree or disagree. But anyways, I think going to your TA's office hours are super helpful, because TAs typically have more office hours than the professor, and TAs are also really great for emailing quick questions. Sometimes you can be intimidated at the thought of emailing your professor a question, but TAs are way less intimidating because they're usually closer to your age. They've been where you've been recently. They understand. So I think utilize your TA's office hours. Okay, I hope this video was helpful. I think this was a request, so hopefully whoever requested this finds this helpful. Speaking of requests, please comment below with any video requests that you have. We will more than likely do it. DM us on Instagram at MJDNNYC. We answer all of our DMs. Subscribe, like this video, do all of the things, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.